Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Outside the Box. And man, how serendipitous is this? I get to sit here with you. I knew about this conversation about 10 hours ago, and it was based on a quick conversation that you had with my dad at Barbaritos, and here we are on Outside the Box. Guys, I'm with Dean Davison here, and you guys might know him, or you will soon, as the owner of Barbaritos, which is brand new.
Yeah, brand new. The store's been there 10 years, but
Yep.
I'm a brand new owner as of about a month ago. So.
And this Barbaritos is in Kingsport, Tennessee, where I am from, where my family's from, where we have a couple different performance medicines in the Tri-Cities area. And you met my dad inside of Barbaritos not that long ago. Is that right?
Yeah, it was like the second week I was there, and I was just going around, just getting to know the guests. We have a lot of repeat guests, and I was just going through there and just doing kind of what we would call a table touch, and just introduce myself. And we were talking a little bit, and then as we ended up talking for, I finally felt bad for talking to him during his whole meal, and I was like, I've got to go, you need to go. And when he introduced himself, a little bit later, it dawned on me that I know that name, and then I looked at his quarter zip, the shirt he had on, his polo, and I was like, wait a second, I put those two together, and of course then we talked about another 30 minutes. So what a neat guy, just a great conversation, and just I've thought a lot of him. I've listened to y'all's podcast before. I've listened to a lot of the stuff that he talks about, and I think a lot along those exact same lines as far as health and exercise and the spiritual part of it. And just like we were talking just a little bit when I walked in here, just, how he is truly a man of medicine, for the people, not just for himself or his status or his social status. Like, this is what he really practices.
Well, you guys were talking, and I think it became very clear to him that you were somebody who definitely thought outside the box, and I know you're going to bring that to Barbaritos and the community around it, but you have a wild story yourself coming into the Current. Tell us a little bit about where you came from.
Yeah, we're excited, like you say, and I appreciate you bringing up the Barbaritos. But really, the story today is really what the Lord has done in my life over like the last, right at 30 years. I got saved when I was off at college, right before I turned 21 years old, and I was down at Georgia Southern, down in Statesboro, Georgia, and got saved. I'd always gone to church, always been around church. I used to cut up with people, now and say, I had a drug problem. They're like, oh, we never knew you did drugs. I was like, well, yeah, my mom drugged me to church every Sunday. So she, it was the typical Baptist upbringing, and I knew a lot about Christ, but I didn't know Christ. And so when I got involved in the campus ministry, my older brother really encouraged me to do that. And once I got saved, then I started to turn all that time and energy and focus and enthusiasm and passion towards the Lord. And so started doing some mission trips and growing, got involved in a discipleship group. And then, once I graduated, I'm like, what do I do? So I got out and I was in sales for a few years for a big company, a Fortune 500 company. I was really blessed to get on with them, and things were going really, really well. And I had grown up kind of with a mechanical background. I had done some kart racing and stuff like that as a kid, and started flying airplanes at 17, got my private pilot's license at 18. And so I had been around that type of stuff. And the long story short, my brother was an FBI agent by this point, and he was down in Orlando, Florida. And I had graduated from Georgia Southern with my first degree in criminal justice. And so I was like, I'm going to try to get on with the Georgia State Patrol, and I'm going to try to move up into the federal stuff, and I'm just going to be a pilot, in law enforcement. That was kind of Dean's plan for Dean's life. As a young Christian, I was growing and learning, but I was still really about me. I was very inwardly focused and really, selfish, just like most of us are. We're born that way. Think about it as babies, and I've got 3 kids now, and so on and so forth. And so, as I began to grow in my relationship with Christ, and really, really grow and start turning the attention off of myself and on Him and what He was calling me to do and had gifted me to be able to do, about that time, I get this pamphlet from my brother, who was doing a Bible study with a friend down in Orlando. And without going into all those details, it was a pamphlet from Moody Bible Institute out of Chicago. And I can still remember it. It was like a little, maybe 2-inch by 2-inch picture of a small plane and a guy standing beside it. And then probably 7 or 8, just a small paragraph, 7 or 8 sentences about, flying in a remote area. And I thought, what? I mean, like, people do this? Like, I thought if you got saved, you just became a pastor, and who wants to be a pastor? I mean, you know what I'm saying? And no disrespect to all the amazing pastors out there, but that's what I thought. That's what I thought. That was my image of that growing up. And I was like, I'll get saved and I'll try to serve the Lord, but I'm not going to be a preacher. Like, not going to do that. And then once I found out there was all these different types of ways as a young Christian to serve the Lord, that's when I started taking the steps towards Moody.
How did you, when you saw that picture of was it a person next to a plane? What clued you in to think that this is a sign from God? Like, how'd you go from that to flying in remote places? And then we're going to get into what that means.
Yeah. And you keep me on topic here, but I got chills when you asked me that question. I can still remember. I was sitting at my desk. And our dad, he's big on work. We had a strong work ethic. We were Eagle Scouts, me and my brother both. He pushed and pushed and pushed. And I had finally gotten what I thought that degree and all of that stuff growing up was the reward, which was Dean being successful in the world's eyes, because that's what we think. And
Sure.
we'll talk about what that means here in a little bit, and what it doesn't mean. So I was sitting at my desk, and I had a beautiful office, a big credenza behind me. I was 24, 23, and I remember looking out the window.
You were in the sales job.
I was in the sales job up on the second floor. I'd already been promised, to continue to move up, and things were going. It couldn't be going any better. And at that time, who is my wife now, me and Heather were dating. She was a dental hygienist, and we were looking at, we were talking about getting married and buying a house out at this on this big lake, and we were just going to have what we all get duped into believing is the American dream. Sure. And so, to answer that question, all of those thoughts and emotions went through me when I looked at that pamphlet and I turned it over and I read it, and I can still remember, to answer your question, pulling the top desk drawer of my desk out and just carefully putting that in there and closing that desk drawer and going,
Not today.
know you're not calling me to do this. I remember saying, I know you're not calling me to do this. I can still remember it. And that was like in 1996. I can still remember that. I could take you right back to, if that building's still there, and just right back to my office, right back to that desk, right back to that chair.
Was it like, so it seems like there was something that connected, probably something from childhood. You've always been into planes, probably, in some degree.
Yes.
And you're just like, man, I don't know if I'm ready for whatever that is.
Yeah, I was just like,
and
Lord,
things are too good.
Things were going too good. Because
Yeah.
remember, at this point in my life, it's all about Dean. It's all about Dean's plan for Dean's life. Oh, yeah, I've got a little spot for the Lord here, but it's all about me, just inwardly focused. And so, and I just thought that's the way we were supposed to be. My dad always said, if you want something, just knock the door down. Like, literally, just knock the door down and go after it. And so I had that mentality, and that doesn't mix with when Christ comes into your life, So I was like, you hit the nail on the head. Things were going too good based on what the world tells us is good.
Sure.
And so I just slowly put it in there. I knew the instant I started reading that, I knew the Lord was calling me to do that.
Interesting.
I knew, and I was thinking, wait a second, this guy from South Georgia, that only snow I've ever seen was from a picture when I was 3 years old, and it was flurrying in our front yard. Really? But I didn't know Alaska at that time.
Okay.
All I knew was the Lord wanted to use my mechanical abilities and my skills as an aviator to get those all the way up to a commercial level, to go serve him somewhere.
So at this point, you're in this great job. You get this sign from God. You kind of say, not yet. Take me from there. How did you mentioned Alaska. How did we get to that point?
Yeah.
and go into the Alaska trip?
That excellent question. So I knew, the Holy Spirit spoke to me immediately, and I thought, and it was, I was a young Christian. I was just a couple years old as a Christian. So I was still a babe in Christ, and I was like, is this the way this works? Is this how this happens? And so, I put it away. I continued to, me and Heather and I and another gentleman had started a youth group for a bunch of small churches that just had a few youth and didn't have a big enough church to have a youth pastor. Yeah. So we were kind of doing this in the area, and I was like, Lord, isn't this enough? That's what I said, isn't this enough? I'm speaking at some churches. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing this youth stuff. We had this big thing on Friday nights after the football games. I mean, it was just crazy because we were in our 20s, but we were a lot older than a 16, 17, 18-year-old.
Right.
But it didn't seem like it at the time. And so we were doing videos and music. I mean, I don't know how we were doing all this stuff, just to be honest with you. Somebody gave us a house for us to start meeting in. So I was like, Lord, isn't this enough? Like, this is enough. Like, I'm serving you here. I got this good job. I've got everything that Dean wanted, here, the eye problem. So how did we get there? So I started going literally to the altar on Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, like every single service, to the point where I thought these people are going to think I've got some kind of terminally ill disease.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this guy is wearing the altar out. And finally I went to the pastor and I said, look, I got to be sure about this. Like, I really need to know, is the Lord calling me? Is this what he's calling? Like, is this how this happens? And he told me, he said, Dean, from what you're describing, this is exactly what the Lord's calling you to do. And I was like, it can't be. You know what I'm saying? Like, first of all, I'm just a guy from South Georgia. Like, he can't use me, And I said, second of all, I've got everything going in life like I've worked for since I was 9 or 10 years old, mowing yards and, working busting tables on Friday and Saturday nights at a little restaurant down from the house. And, I said, this can't be. And so after about literally a year of praying, I went back to that brochure. And back then it was before email and stuff, really. And so they mailed me a brochure. I filled out the application. And what they would do then is they would bring in about 90 candidates to an evaluation camp. And you'd stay up here for a week, and then you would fly part of the day, and then they would give you mechanical skill tests throughout the rest of the day.
So this is in order to get a certain license to be able to fly commercially?
That's right. That's
okay.
exactly right.
Okay.
Because I had my private license, but private is just me and you going around and
Right.
looking at the Watauga Lake,
Right.
or flying around. So to get my instrument rating, my commercial rating, and all my maintenance ratings to work on the planes, because you're going to be in a remote area.
Were you going to do all that if you didn't get this sign, or is this kind of that first action step once you got the sign?
Yeah, none of this was in my plan. At this point, I'm totally following the Lord. I was going to be happy with my little private license, fly to the beach, have fun, live at this community that has a little airstrip, that has a little lake, and just do it for fun like I'd always done. I'd never wanted to be like a commercial pilot or a air taxi or anything like that. I just enjoyed flying. I enjoyed working on things. But when the Lord got involved and said, look, I can use these skills I've gifted you with to serve me in remote areas, and not everybody's equipped like that. So I just couldn't deny it, So I filled out the application. I went through the process. And even then, even when I was at evaluation camp, I wasn't still sold on the idea. I was just taking it one step at a time. Yeah. I had to go back and do a good bit of more Bible classes. Okay, so I did all that. I was doing everything to walk through those doors as the Lord continued to open them. But when we were over here, it was June of 1996. I went through evaluation camp, and there was 92 of us. They accepted 32, and when I started the next summer in 97. When I graduated from there 3 years later from the actual aviation campus here over in Elizabethton, there was from 92 to 32 to 13.
Wow!
So it was one of the toughest, hardest academic, however you want to look at it, educations I've ever done in my life.
Why is it so competitive? So, like, is it tougher to fly in remote areas? Does it require more skill? Yeah,
I mean, it definitely does. And Moody was the toughest place to go as far as their standards on training. So you have the FAA standards that anybody that wants to get these private, instrument, commercial, ATP, different ratings has to go through. Well, Moody took it up several notches from the FAA standards.
Got it.
Because you were going to be in remote areas. You were going to be in different type of wind patterns. Just like up there, the weather would change. I used to have 2 or 3 different backup plans when I would take off in Alaska, because the weather could change almost instantly.
Interesting.
Because of Mount McKinley.
Yeah.
So their training was very, very rigorous. A lot of people just washed out, if you will. And the way I looked at it, it was just the Lord was calling some to continue to do that and move others in other directions. I don't think it was somebody was better than the next person in a sense. There's some people just had the skills to be able to continue to go. But I guess it was right up there with military style training.
What's interesting to me is I would also imagine the fact that you were getting your energy from another source in a way. Like to me, like if if it's coming from you and for you, there, like, it's a little more limiting than if, you clearly, this was kind of God's plan for you. And like, there's something to that. And I have, reason to believe that had something to do with why you, in addition to your skill, made it.
No.
And God probably knew that you had that.
You're absolutely right, because at this point, when we started talking, leaving the company I was with and coming up here to do the evaluation camp, and then obviously the next year starting in school, it's like I'm telling a story about somebody else, because that wasn't me at that point. Everything up in that point pretty much had been me. Mm-hmm. From that point on, it was definitely the Lord. It was not my idea. It wasn't something that I had dreamed up and thought, oh, this will be neat, or I can serve the Lord this way. It was totally removed Dean from the equation, and the Lord was the one that was sustaining me, getting us through it financially, physically, spiritually. The skills, I don't know. I was surprised when I got the letter that said I had been accepted. I mean, I was very surprised. I was just like, oh my gosh.
At that point, did you know you were going to Alaska?
No, at that point we knew we were coming here. At that point I knew I had to raise a bunch of money to get through school. So we started speaking at churches and sending out newsletters and all that good stuff. But I had no idea where we would go. But each fall they'd have a missions conference, and mission agencies that needed pilot mechanics from all over the world would come, and we would sit down with them, and there'd be 10 or 12 agencies there, and they would say, we need a pilot and a mechanic here, we need a pilot mechanic here, we need one here. So we always thought it was going to be with a group called New Tribes Missions and going to Papua New Guinea. That's just kind of what we thought it was going to be. And my senior year, all that changed. We heard about some needs in Alaska. And that's we started taking the steps to move towards Alaska.
So what year was that? You started this journey kind of in 96?
96, graduated in 2000, started raising support and figuring things out right around the 2000 mark. And then it was amazing how the Lord just put everything together with an airplane and everything. I became ordained at that point because they didn't want just I really became the pastor. I actually was the pastor there in a Athabascan Indian village with 160 Athabascan Indians on the Yukon River, with me and my wife and my two daughters. My son was not born until we got back. It was Caden and Cammie. They're 23 and 21 now. So, but Cammie was like 3 months old the day we got there.
So you're up in Alaska, and what do you do as a flying a plane up in Alaska?
Yeah,
what does that mean?
Yeah, well, at that time, I remember looking up, and I don't think I told Heather this, but it was the third most dangerous job in the world. A plane was crashing every 6 days.
No kidding.
In Alaska.
Were you like transporting stuff?
We were transporting. I love that question. We were transporting anything from sled dogs to people to food to supplies to lumber. I was in a small 6-passenger plane, but I had it where I could take every seat out but the pilot seat, and it had good cargo doors on it, and it had what they call a belly pod on the bottom of it, so I could fill it full of stuff, fill everything else full of stuff. I was taking kids to Bible camp. And, when we talk about camp, we get on a bus, our kids get on a bus, they drive to camp, and it's, super, super nice. These people, I would go fly to different villages, bring them back to our village. We'd wait on the banks of the Yukon. A boat would come by, take them up the Yukon about 2 hours, and there was Bible camp.
Jeez.
Yes.
Everything is way more difficult.
Just living out there. Like, we get so much done in an hour that would take a day or two to get done out there, because just living, just existing is work. Just your food, just keeping things repaired. You'll learn to work on stuff that you never thought you'd. I was part plumber, part electrician, part mechanic. But taking these kids to Bible camp, they would wait on the banks of the Yukon for the boat to come up, and then once they got there, they would be there for a week. Then we'd go back and pick them up and take them back. But they were so remote that all their food had to be up in what they called a cache, about 12, 15 feet off the ground, so the bears would not get up and get the food and mess with the water and everything. So it was just we talk about being remote, and we talk about being backwoods, and this is like Paris compared to where we were at. You know what I'm saying? So.
Well, I have to ask, it seems like it takes a ton of resiliency just to exist up there. What were some things that you learned while you were there, either from the people, from yourself, from God? Like, what did you learn up there?
Just a ton. I mean, if you could have put an academic degree on it, it would have been a double PhD or something, because you just can't get that type of experience. I learned so much. I mean, I learned, first of all, the Lord's the one that called us there. It was not my idea. It was not Heather's idea. When we first sat down and talked about, even leaving to go get the training to do what we felt like the Lord's calling us to do, she said, look, we're married, because we obviously got married by that point. And we're joined as one in Christ's eyes. And so if this is what the Lord is calling us to do, then let's go do it. So I learned a lot about what the Lord, wants us and calls us to do, and being obedient. You've noticed I'm kind of redheaded, so I'm a little rebellious, that kind of goes with the territory, and it's all true. And so, it was hard for me to follow another plan that wasn't mine, because I felt like I had worked so hard. I felt like I had earned where I had gotten in life at 23, 24 years old. But the Lord showed me, no, you didn't. Like he's like, I died in your place to pay the price for your sins. And I'm not asking you to die for me. I'm asking you to die to yourself. And so that's what I learned by going to Alaska. One of the main things was to die to myself, to serve him and to serve those other people. And when you turn the attention away, think about it. You'll relate to this in your own life. Some of the worst days I have when I'm focused on Dean. Some of the best days I have is when I'm focused, just like when I met your dad that day. I was all about focusing on the guests that day, walking around, shaking hands, making sure they were having a great experience in the restaurant. And that's how I met your dad.
Yeah.
I could have been worried about, are we making money? You know what I'm saying? Who's on overtime? You know what I'm saying? As the Cisco truck showed up,
Right.
I was totally focused on the other people in the restaurant at that time. And so when I got to Alaska, that was total focus on those folks. There was nothing for me or Heather or my girls to gain from being there. This was not a Caribbean ministry. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I've been doing some stuff down in the Bahamas, and I was like, thank you, Lord. Is this my reward? Because I'm flying down close to Turks and Caicos last December, and the water went from this gorgeous blue aqua to this amazing deep purple, and I'm like, you can't even take a picture of that to be able to describe that. So I was like, is this my reward for serving in Alaska? Sorry to get off topic there, but yeah, that's what I learned, is being obedient to what he's called us to do, outwardly focused, not inwardly focused.
Love it. I love it. And I'm trying to think, like, is being obedient, is it like a muscle? Is it something that gets easier the more you do it?
Absolutely. No, it does. But then I think it can also atrophy, just like if, I worked out this morning. And so, I try to work out 4 or 5 times a week. But the first few weeks of the restaurant, I couldn't find the gym, you know what I'm saying? Because I was working, and I was at the restaurant a lot, and I was running around. So I think your faith can do that. I really do. I felt like my faith, and I don't mind admitting this, was stronger during those few years in Alaska than maybe it is even now. And the reason I say that is because I was 110% dependent on him for my safety, for the safety of my family, for my groceries. Flying that airplane, like I say, a plane was going down every 6 days. I mean, that is a lot. The weather changes, mechanical issues. There's not good places to land. If it is, it's going to be in several feet of snow. I literally had, about 40 pounds of survival gear. If you got to load up with that every time you leave, the odds are that could happen. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, we drive across town. If I don't even have a spare tire right now, I don't even care. Somebody's going to stop. I'm going to call somebody on my cell phone. I'll just sit there and do emails because I got plenty of work to do. I'm not worried about that. But in Alaska, we bundled up, and when we take the girls, and this really affected Heather to this day. We would bundle the girls up. We put them in their little car seats. And Heather would be bundled up, I'd be bundled, because we already wanted to have on our protective clothing in case we went down. So mentally, that affected me, but it really affected Heather. Like to this day, once we got back from Alaska, and we started dating when she was 15, I was 17. And I got my license, like I say, right when I turned 18. And so we would fly. Like some of our dates as teenagers through college was to get in the plane and fly to Jacksonville for dinner, or fly to St. Simons. This was all
That's
down.
so cool.
Yeah, it was so cool. Yeah. And we would call you up and go, hey, you and Sarah come and jump in the plane. We're flying. And they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, let's go. And we would fly. My little girls have hundreds of hours in airplanes. Now they'll still jump in. If we can get to the beach in 45 minutes, they're like, yeah,
whatever.
What time are we leaving?
Yeah.
But Heather, to this day, has still been affected by that, and she will not, she even went and sat in the plane that we're partners in, and it's not nothing fancy or anything, but she went and sat in it the other day, and she's like, man, what a shame. Like, what a nice airplane. And I still have this lasting effect of, being anxious about being in the air. And so it was very, very mental. You talk about the mental toughness. We lived in a 600 square foot cabin that had only 20% of the village had running water, and only 20% of the village had electricity. Yeah, the electricity was a big diesel generator, just like they would use on the battleground, on the battlefields. And then we had a box that came up, just a well that came up, and it was all heated. All the pipes were heated. It was the best bathroom floor I've ever had in my life. It was so heated. I was like, oh my gosh, we're like at a 15-star, luxury hotel, and we're out in the middle of the woods. But we had 3 light bulbs, no fixtures, just literally hung down from the wires, and a little tiny little kitchen area, little bedroom. We had both the girls in there, and it was teeny tiny. So just the darkness, the depression, the anxiety, her worrying about me, the suicide rate, because that's still part of America, even though you don't feel like where we were. Now, if you go to the southeast part where people go to cruises, they're not even going to understand why they're going to be like, that guy's crazy, man. we love going there. We get off the cruise ship and we see, we were like 800 miles north of you. You know what I'm saying? We were only 125 miles south of the Arctic Circle. So we were on top of the world, but we weren't living like we were on top of the world. And so the darkness, the anxiety, the sexual abuse in a village, the drug abuse in a village would blow your mind. You would never, that Yukon River, when it freezes over, it comes like Interstate 26 out here. It's just snowmobile. It becomes like a little highway, and they're running stuff back and forth up through there.
Really?
It's unreal at the abuse, the drug abuse, the sexual abuse, the anxiety. It's because of they have no hope. There's nothing out there to really give them hope other than.
Is it like it's dark up there, right? Is that the one where it's dark 24 hours a day?
No, now another up in Barrow, they have a day where it doesn't even come up, and then leading towards that, it's bloop up on the horizon and back down. Around 11, it would be like it looked like about 6:45 this morning.
Jeez.
You see what I'm saying? And then about 7 o'clock, 7:15 until about 2 o'clock today, and then it starts going right back down. So about 3 or 4 hours in our lowest part of the daylight. What
were some of the things that you guys did as a family or you personally to kind of, stay upbeat, stay positive, because you're there on a mission, Like, how did you deal with that?
It's just a great question. Multiple ways. And I don't want to over spiritualize anything. One of them was just go down to the general store and get a Pepsi for me and Heather.
I love that.
And I don't even drink soft drinks. I would go down. It was if the listeners can envision Little House on the Prairie on the Yukon River with an airplane. And a snowmobile. Okay, no wagons, but everything else was the same. We had a sawmill. We had a little general store that had the post office in it. The plane would bring in the mail. And so I would literally go down there, and we got in with them, the manager of the store. So we had a little phone system. It was kind of like a walkie-talkie system, but it looked like a phone. And it was like a little delay, but she'd call us and say, hey, the plane's coming, and they got some Pepsi on the plane. So I would get a tip that Pepsi was coming in, and so we literally would go down there and wait for them to unload the plane and bring it in the store. That was like one of the biggest things that was so special to us. Because, like I say, I'm not trying to over spiritualize this. That was a big thing. I remember one day. It had been about 35 below for 4 or 5 days, a lot of snow, a lot of mist. And Heather had not been out. The girls had not been out. I would still get out because I had to go check on the plane and go around and check on the people in the village and, pray with them, a lot of counseling, stuff like that. And it was 20 below. I can still remember this. It was 20 below. I put up on the snowmobile. The sun was out kind of like a day like today in Northeast Tennessee, and it was 20 below. And I walked in. We had an Arctic porch where you took several layers off and then walked into the house, with just what I would have on today, and said, get the girls dressed. It's 20 below. We need to get everybody outside. It's beautiful. And she was like, what? And we went for a snowmobile ride that day.
Really?
Just to get everybody outside. Your body starts to acclimate. Now, you couldn't just sit out there with no clothes on.
20 below is warm?
It felt warm after 35 below.
God.
And you have been cooped up in a cabin for 4 or 5 days, and Heather needed to get out.
Yeah.
So we would do things like that. We'd get on the snowmobile, ride around, because there was no roads, it was just trails. And then we would when I would fly into Fairbanks, we would go to Costco, and I would load up, like I told you, I had that external belly pod on the plane, and it was not heated. So I would go into Costco and buy all shrimp, steak, all kinds of stuff, and just load that up, and we'd have a big cookout. And then but the main thing, besides just the physical things that we did like that to try to make things special, was, you know, what I was telling you, we were 110% dependent on the Lord. Like here, I can get away from stuff, or I can, you know, we're in Johnson City. I mean, there's just anything you want to get into around here. There, it was just Heather and me, the girls, and this strange culture that we literally stepped out of this culture, and a few days later landed in that culture, like literally. And that was very, very tough. So we totally were dependent on the Lord for just our mental health.
How long did you do that?
So we were up there, from the training, the fundraising, and up there, like 7 years of everything.
7 years.
But not all in Alaska. You know what I'm saying? That was the training, the fundraising, and then up there. But after a few seasons, it was just, I remember telling Heather, and this will hopefully help people with the mental part of things, and I could tell it was starting to weigh on her. And so I said, Heather, if this ever gets too tough, you know, you let me know. You know, you just say mercy,
sure.
You know,
yeah.
and we'll get out of here. Well, a couple of weeks went by, and she was like a little bulldog. I was like, man, she's never going to say that. And I was like, you know, the Lord has called me to be the spiritual leader as the head of the household. And that's the way he's ordained the family unit. And I was like, I've got to make this tough decision, because I could jump in that airplane. I mean, I'm a country boy. You gave me a high-powered rifle, a snowmobile, which I'd never seen one before, and an airplane, and I pretty much can survive anywhere. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to be pretty content. You know, I got my airplane, got my rifle, got my snowmobile, but Heather was there literally in a cabin, if you can envision, if you're at home, with a 2-car garage that's about 600 square feet, with 2 babies, all day, every day.
Yep.
You know, in the dark. And so I came to the conclusion that I had to make some decisions, you know, and I had to decide that it's my relationship with Christ, then my relationship with my wife, then our ministry. And I've seen a lot of people get their ministry before both of those.
Oh, interesting. So you guys, so you made the tough decision, come back here.
Yep.
And then you got back into corporate world?
I made the decision. I talked to some mentors. One of them has passed away now. He was a missionary on the Nile River. He's kind of like Paul to me, just an amazing missionary and amazing person. And then one of them is still here. Super amazing guy. Just did a lot for us and still does to this day. I still call him on when I actually bought the restaurant. I sat down with him.
Way.
Yeah, and got some of his advice. Super, super good man. Just a great guy. So we didn't know where we were going back to. We went back to South Georgia. I could have got back with a company in the corporate world where I was at. There was an offer there, and it just didn't feel right, you know. So we came up here to literally visit some churches and visit some former supporters, just to let them know. Sure. They knew what we had done and we would come back, but we just wanted to let them know what was going on. And while we were here, some good friends said, hey, why don't y'all stay an extra few days? We've got this house. It's a family house. We hadn't decided what we're going to do with it. Y'all just stay there for a few days. And we were literally, the last day, we were packing up to go back to Georgia. And I was like, you know, nothing really opened up here. And then boom, a door opened up. We went down there, didn't have much but a bunch of Carhartt jackets and clothes and bibs and coveralls, and loaded all that up and moved up here. And it was another adventure. I felt like the Lord was like, you know, you can go back to South Georgia. There's nothing wrong with that. But I could use you up here in Northeast Tennessee. And so we moved up here, and we had a place to stay, free rent, until I found a job, but I didn't have a job. And that is just so not like me, you know what I'm saying? Because I like everything planned, everything to a T. That keeps me less anxious and focused. And I moved up here with no job, and ended up getting a job that took to a different job, got back up in the corporate world, and I've been doing that ever since. But teaching Bible studies, I got a Bible study on Sunday nights with there's 21 high schoolers there last Sunday night, 16,
Amazing.
17, 18 years old. They come to my basement on Sunday nights, and they want to study the Word of God. I mean,
so cool.
They could tell their mom and dad that they're going anywhere in the Tri-Cities, and they literally show up at my house.
That's amazing.
It's super cool. Yeah.
Well,
so the Lord's used us since we've been back.
Your story is just so amazing. Like, as we wrap up here, what are some kind of practical things listeners can take away, that you learned through your experience in Alaska, through dealing with, maybe some of the depression, that sort of thing. And I think a big thing is like being flexible, being able to kind of roll with things. While, and then I got a personal question after that. Go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, and hopefully we didn't get too sidetracked, because I did want to talk about that. It was definitely mentally tough for Heather and myself. Being the guy and the way we're, raised in our culture, we don't want to act like, well, it was just Heather. I mean, it was definitely me too. It was very, very tough. So just totally being honest with yourself. We were there. The Lord had us there. He called us there. There's no doubt about that. He led us back to be here and do the ministry that we do today. You know what I'm saying? But to be honest with yourself, if this isn't working, be honest, because when you're not with yourself, then it's completely turns into anxiety and stress, and you're trying to be somebody that you're not. Your mom and I was talking the other day, and with one of your other guys that had been on, and I listened to that. It was very, very good, very, very interesting, and gave me a different perspective even today on how to think about things. So just learning to be honest with myself, but always putting the Lord first. He's never going to call us or take us somewhere that He has not equipped us to do, and He equipped Heather and I to do that. We thought we'd be there for a lifetime. We really had planned on, this is where we're going to be. That's the mindset we went with. It was never, this is a 2-year commitment or a 6-month commitment, or I would have been like, that's not worth doing all this for. This is a lifetime commitment. But He didn't leave us there for a lifetime. And I cut up sometimes when I speak, and I'll say, that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to ask Adam and Eve why they screwed everything up for us, because we could be sitting in the cool of the garden sipping lemonade. And the second thing I'm going to ask the Lord is, hey, why didn't you leave? Like, why? But His economy is not our economy. And that's the other thing I learned, is that just because we felt like we'd put all this time and all this energy into that, He may have had us there for that. To me and Heather seemed like a short amount of time. Did all that training for just a few people. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? We'll get to see one day why He had us there. All I know is He did have us there. And all I know is He has us here in East Tennessee, and He's had us here for the last, 17, 18 years,
Yeah.
But I did learn, Luke 9:23 is to if any man come after me, just deny himself, take up Christ's cross daily, and follow Him. And that's, to me, that's what it's not about me. You know what I'm saying? This time here on earth is really not about Dean Davison. He's blessed me with a wife. He's blessed me with the kids. He's blessed me with a good job. He's blessed me with ministry here. But it's really about all of that to build up the kingdom, because we're not going to be here forever.
I love that. Personal question here. I'm similar to you. I like having a plan. I like having, kind of my task list. How do you exercise like obedience, faith, while also knowing, personally what you need, to not be fearful, anxious. I'm somebody who kind of likes to know what I'm doing, but I'm also, I want to be more like you and have like that obedience, outward focused mindset.
Yeah, man, I love it. You and I are a lot alike. I could just tell, by have listened to your podcast and meeting you, and being a pilot. Think about it. I'm very checklist oriented. I want a checklist. I mean, I want a checklist. I want to know what comes next. I want to know what happens if you miss that part on the checklist. And you're the same type of structured person. So for me, how did I allow the Lord to work through me and not have that? Because I'm definitely not, let's just, walk out here on 26 and see if we can catch a ride and see where we end up. That is not me at all, not even remotely close to me. And when I tell this story that we just told, that was a lot like that. You know what I'm saying? Like Alaska from South Georgia with 2 babies. You know what I'm saying? 2 babies are hard in downtown Johnson City, much less where we don't have medical attention if something happens. And so for me, it was total, and that's why I touched on this a while ago. It was total faith. Ben, for me, it was total faith, because that was not me. When I said earlier, when I was saying, I'm telling this story, it's like I'm telling you about another person. It was me, but it's like I'm describing somebody else's testimony, something else went on, because my faith was so strong in the Lord at that time. My salvation has never waned. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'm saved. I was saved then. I'm still saved now. But I had more, my faith was stronger. I'm just telling you, my faith was stronger in the Lord at that time. And He was the one that was able to allow me to be flexible, to roll with it and go where he leads. And I really can't say that I'm at that same point today.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a balance. Like there's going to be seasons when you have to like be, fully winging it. And there'll be seasons where, you are a little more regimented, have your task list, have your plan.
Yes.
Yes.
You're exactly right. And he just, even today, I'm still following him. Obviously, I'm still following him. But what I do today doesn't take as much faith as what I did 20-something years ago. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I can't, I don't know, maybe that's part two. I can't answer that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I really can't answer that because I know I'm still following him. I know he's leading me. I know he's using me and my family in a lot of lives in the Tri-Cities. Again, we've done some aviation ministry down in Bahamas, and he's used us down there. But yeah, that is really, to sum it up, is just, it was all about the faith, and it really wasn't me. And when you take and put your faith in Christ and you become obedient through that faith, he starts to lead you. You take your eyes off of yourself and you start seeing him work through you in the lives of in this case, the Athabascan Indians. Then you don't really look back. You don't really think about your checklist and where you want to be in life and the way we were raised. You know what I'm saying? Right. I mean, we live in an amazing culture. I love it's amazing, but at the same time, it can totally take us in a way wrong direction. Does that make sense?
It does.
So,
totally.
Yep.
Dean, man, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us on Outside the Box, man. That's incredible. Incredible story.
Thank you, man.
Any parting advice you want to leave the listeners with?
Man, just for everybody listening, just again, thank you for having me. I mean, this was totally candid. Nothing was rehearsed. I felt like I walked off the Watauga Avenue here and just sat down and started talking, had a microphone, and I love that. No, just for anybody out there's listening, just the love of Christ and what he's done for us and what he wants to do, the way, he paid the price for our sins on the cross, and that he does. Last thing, I was talking to a young person the other day, and I won't say who or where, and they mentioned something about, I said to this person, hey, be good, don't get any trouble, just making small talk like we always do before somebody walks out to your kid or another kid or whatever. And they were like, it doesn't really matter. You're just here till you die anyway. And man, that hit me like a ton of bricks for this 17, 18-year-old to tell me, that's what you think about life? And so what I'd like to leave with everybody, and I taught on this the other night at a quick little devotion that we did, is that Ephesians chapter 2, 1 through 10 is talking about being made alive in Christ. And you're not alive on this earth until you know Jesus Christ as your Savior. And once you become to know the Jesus Christ as your Savior and experience that love he has for you, then you can turn, because we're all about, humans are, and you've heard this on some of your other podcasts, and the guys, and I loved how they brought that in, are about love. You know what I'm saying? And we've got to feel, we are humans, we want to be loved and we want to love.
Yeah.
And so when you experience that love from the Father of Jesus Christ, who paid the price for us, and you experience that, and you're able to actually go out and give that and quit loving yourself and go out and love others, whether it's in Johnson City, whether it's on the Yukon River in Alaska, whether it's, all the way across the world, that's what I would like to leave with people, because then you're getting the mindset of Christ and you're made alive in Christ. And we're just not here existing till we die.
Yeah.
And when that young person said that to me, it broke my heart. I've since had a conversation with them, and I'm going to continue to have more conversations with this person I'm talking about. But you're made alive in Christ, and that's what we need to realize, that if these people are dealing with anxiety, if they're dealing with depression, if they're dealing with suicidal thoughts, man, you've got to get pointed toward, medicine's great. I mean, we're sitting here in the doctor's office now. It's great. The Lord has gifted people like your dad to practice medicine and be very intelligent to do that. But a pill's not the answer for everything.
Sure,
you know what I'm saying? And you know that, and your dad agrees with that. That's why I'm here today, because I have I'm definitely not a doctor. I've never even played one in a play or on TV. But your dad is, and his sincerity and what he tries to do in his practices and his multiple offices, here in Knoxville and so on and so forth, impresses me that that's what he's trying to do. But that's what people need to understand, is that's where they need to get, is that love of Christ, the mindset of Christ, and they be made alive in Christ. And then that starts to take away a lot of the anxiety. It starts to take away a lot of the depression, and they can focus on someone outside of themselves. That makes a difference.
I love that. Dean Davison. Guys, go visit him at Barbaritos. I know I'm going to. And y'all are great. I really appreciate y'all hanging out with us on Outside the Box. Dean Davison, that's a show, man.
Hey, thank you, brother.
We did it.
We did it.
We
Good
did
deal.
it.
Good deal.
That's a
Thank
show.
you. Yes, sir.
See you
Thanks.
guys.
Don't go away.